Well, good morning. My name is Vip Vipperman, and I'm excited to be back on the Back in the Bold podcast. Today, my guest, Wade Myers of Eagle Venture Fund. Wade, glad to have you with us, bud.
Great to be here, Vip. Thank you.
Yeah, where are you calling from in the world?
Calling in from my house in Fort Worth, Texas.
Awesome, awesome. Glad to have another Texan on the call. You know, we've talked to people from all over the world on these podcasts as we've been introducing the portfolio, but it's fun to chat with another Texan. Well, hey, Wade, this morning we're going to dive into some of the history of Eagle Venture Fund, some of the purpose and motivation that you and the other general partners had as you got it started, and then what you see for the future. So as we're diving in this morning, what was happening in your life and career when the idea of Eagle first took root?
I'd been a tech entrepreneur for 25 years and an angel investor for 25 years. I'd already been chairman of a seed capital fund and had a lot of experience in VC and was just looking for the opportunity to start a fund with like-minded partners that would share my, values, share my vision of investing with a purpose, etc.
Awesome. So what problem did you see in the world or in the venture landscape that really convinced you a different kind of fund was needed?
Sure. Well, there's tons of venture funds, several thousand in the U.S. Most of them, are just in it for the money, trying to produce a great return for investors, and there's nothing wrong with that. That helps build our entrepreneurial economy. But I was really interested in investing in a way that had much more purpose, that solved specific problems. And I already had kind of some rules, if you will, about what I wanted to invest in and what I didn't. And so what I wanted to do is find partners that shared all of those kinds of ideas and start a fund. And that's how Eagle came together.
Awesome. So specifically, how did you guys come together as a team? Like, how did two guys from Zurich and a guy from Virginia and a guy from Texas all get to know each other? And what did each of you bring to the table?
Yes. So Ray and Rafi had already known Wes, and they had done some diligence for some investments that Wes had made when he was with an RIA firm. And then I bumped into Wes or got to know Wes because of a Lion's Den event here in Dallas that I was an early kind of planner and organizer of, along with you and a few other folks. And so Wes had come and had been invited to be a judge. Anyway, we got kind of connected through that and started talking about, what we wanted to do. And we were both working on the same thing of, a purpose-oriented, faith-based venture fund. And so I flew up to Annapolis to meet with them all. Ray and Rafi were in town, and we just had a great weekend together discussing what it would be like. And that's how we formed Eagle Venture Fund.
Awesome. Well, so in that conversation, like in those early days, what was the defining conviction or the non-negotiable that shaped Eagle's mission?
Yeah, number one, that we wanted to honor God in all that we did, and we wanted to just dedicate the fund to God, and that we wanted to really invest in a way that would make a difference, that would change lives, that would solve, big problems in the world. And we talked about what kind of problems we wanted to solve. And so it was really from the very beginning saying we want to do this differently than in just a typical venture fund.
Awesome. Did you know that the types of projects you would work on at that time, or was that still kind of forming?
Well, I had several things I was working on, so I had a sense for that. I think all of us together had, various problems we wanted to solve. So solving trafficking wasn't high on my list. It was higher on Wes's list. I wanted to invest in fixing the entrepreneurial ecosystem, for example. Ray and Rafi were much more focused on healthcare. So as we came together, we said, okay, let's do all three things, right? Let's invest in companies that are fixing the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Let's invest in companies that are combating trafficking in all forms, sex trafficking and labor trafficking. And let's invest in technology companies that are extending healthcare access to those that don't have it. And so it kind of brought together our various passions and interests, but in a way that was all honoring God and making a real difference in the world, because everybody yearns to be free, and it's a horrible thing to be trapped in trafficking. But once you're freed from that, you also need health care and you need dignified work
Mm,
and,
absolutely.
growing the economy, providing jobs, et cetera. So they all three kind of work together, if you will, of solving three of the biggest problems in the world.
It's amazing. Well, at the beginning, when you guys came together, you had been a tech entrepreneur. Wes had been an RIA. Ray had done some company rebuilding. Talk a little bit about what you guys brought to the table in the sense of, did certain people kind of take different roles?
Yeah, we had definitely different skill sets. Rafi had been a Swiss banker, right? And really knew the kind of the financial system and raising capital. And I was a very experienced startup entrepreneur and had done a lot of angel investing and venture investing. And so, and then Wes knew how to manage, investor relations and raising capital as well. And like you said, was used to kind of helping companies, coaching companies, turning companies around, and optimizing operations. So we all ended up kind of contributing a different, view, different talents, so that we could surround our early investments and really help them from all angles. So it worked out really well.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So now moving into purpose and motivation, what personally compels you to invest your time and capital in ventures that advance human freedom, justice, and flourishing?
Well, yeah, so it's one of those things that at my age and stage in life, I'm more focused on purpose
Mm,
than I am profit, if you will. And there's so many huge problems in the world.
mm,
And if I think about 50 million people trapped in trafficking, and if I think about so many people that don't have a job or they're out of work or all the issues with the entrepreneurial ecosystem and people that don't have health care, I mean, yeah, these are really fun problems to solve. And so a lot of my friends have retired. And people ask me when do you plan on retiring? Well, I don't want to retire when there's so many things that could be solved. And I still have so much energy to give. And like Tim Tebow says, right, he wants to show up in heaven and it just be worn out, right, as opposed to well done, my rested and faithful servant, right? And so it's like, yeah, I'm going to work right till the end of trying to help people and solve problems and do it in a way that honors God.
awesome. Um, when you do think about the work that Eagle does, what does impact truly mean to you?
Well, we measure impact in several different ways. One is how many people are freed from trafficking, as an
Okay.
example. How many people are upskilled and into a higher paying job, and how much capital a company has raised, or how many new jobs have been created. So those are we have really key metrics of making a difference in the world, and that's how we measure impact.
So, how do you define success beyond financial terms?
Well, so those kinds of impact measures. So the more people that we gain freedom, the more bad guys that get convicted, the more jobs that are created, the more people that are upskilled, the more successful everything is. So we want to have great returns for investors, but also we want to have a lot of success in terms of those purpose-driven metrics of making a difference in people's lives.
Awesome. So, was there a particular story, a person, or a moment that really cemented your why behind this mission?
No, I think it's been there all along, Vip. Where this is everything about this is purposeful. But I was exposed to human trafficking when I fought in the Gulf War, and obviously there has been different points in my life where I could see that there were problems. And anytime I raised capital for my own startups and got frustrated with how I was treated by venture capital, there was these moments throughout my career that sort of brought together these pieces that form, my why, my purpose around Eagle.
Do love to hear it. All right, as we look into evolution and growth for the future, how has Eagle's mission or focus kind of evolved from the first fund to today, 7 funds later?
Yeah, one for sure is to our deal flow has really increased dramatically. So in the early days, we didn't have that much deal flow to consider. And now that we have been so far into this, almost 9 years now, we have way more deal flow than we can ever deal with. So we were looking for investments in the first fund, and now we're basically just choosing which investments out of all the deal flow that we see. So what that means too is we have better and better opportunities to invest in, and we're doing deeper level of diligence, and we can be a lot choosier on the founders, the purpose of the company, and because of the wonderful deal flow and the brand that we've built and the awareness in the startup ecosystem of what we do and how we do it.
This is amazing. Like hearing some of the story of the funds being created. What lessons from your early years as an entrepreneur have helped you lead and invest now? Can you give us 2 to 3 things that you've learned in building 30 or more companies?
Well, even before that, I learned how to be a leader in the Army and, going through all the military training that I did. So having leadership experience is absolutely critical for to know how to be a founder as a tech founder, but also how to look for those same kind of leadership characteristics in the founder that we invest in. Another thing is just the sales and marketing experiences that I had in a Fortune 500 company, because every founder is selling. You're constantly selling, right? And so those kinds of early experiences in my career were very, very helpful. And then having that lived experience of starting up a whole bunch of tech startups and really understanding what a founder is going through. And so I can give them great advice. And there's at my stage now, I've pretty much seen every problem there is that founders face, and so I can be very helpful and empathetic whatever they're going through.
Yeah, with that in mind, you mentioned like some of the challenges that you've seen over the years. Is there anything that sticks out in your past where like a mistake was made or a lesson was learned that you've helped an entrepreneur to skip past it now? Like, can you give us an example?
Right. So in many cases, it's around scaling too quickly. Thinking that you're onto something when it's maybe not properly validated. So taking all the time necessary to make sure that the idea has been fully validated. Another one is you just around the fundraising and making sure that the founder does a good job of negotiating term sheets and raising capital in raising the amount of capital they need. And so there's just so many lessons in those early stages of getting the product market fit right, getting the right team, raising the right amount of capital, and building the right amount of momentum. All of those are great lessons.
Nice. So, when did you realize Eagle and particularly the Freedom Fund has moved from an idea to a movement?
Yeah, I think it's the investor enthusiasm. It's when we go do a road show or an investor presentation. What's interesting about the Freedom Fund is everybody can get behind that. It's a purple issue, right? It doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative, and everyone can understand trafficking and how horrible it is. And so it turns out to be kind of an easy fund to describe in terms of the purpose behind the fund. What's a little more difficult to describe is how do you actually make money combating trafficking? And it's an easy explanation. It's like any kind of crime fighting technology, right? There's all kinds of companies making money fighting financial crimes and cybersecurity, and those are huge marketplaces, hundreds of billions of dollars marketplace opportunity for tech companies fighting crimes. And so this is, a freedom fund that invests in tech companies combating trafficking is no different. But the issue is one that everyone understands and can get behind pretty easily. And so that's kind of turned into a bit of a movement, especially when we put together the Clapham Accelerator, which you run, VIP, which brings together nonprofits, for-profits, government, law enforcement, et cetera, to collectively kind of collaborate and solve a problem. And then, company ideas come out of that, new startups come out of that, funding opportunities come out of that, and that's where it becomes a movement.
Awesome. So, looking towards the future, what future do you hope that Eagle will help create for founders, investors, and the world?
Well, more of what we're doing right now, which is, building companies in our venture studios, investing in companies through our venture fund, and companies that are solving these big problems in a very creative and meaningful way, and to where we can really count the numbers, because these are lives that are changed. And so that's what I'm hoping we can create, is just more and more lives that are changed and transformed. People, more and more people that gain freedom, et cetera.
Nice. Well, if someone were to describe Eagle 10 years from today, so we're talking 2020, 2035, what would you want them to say?
Yeah, that we were a different kind of venture fund that really cared about founders and that really cared about the solutions that founders were delivering to the marketplace, and
Hmm.
that we made a huge difference in the world, as well as returned great returns to investors.
Nice. Yep. Both of those things, man. All right. How do you see Eagle's role in redefining what venture capital can stand for?
I'd like to, get to a point where people no longer think of venture capital as vulture
That's right.
capital, or that they don't think of venture capitalists as a negative, but they see venture capital as a partner that adds a ton of value to build companies that change the world.
Wonderful. Okay. Last question. And I mentioned it to a couple of the other guys. It's just been fun to talk about. What do your kids think of what you do?
Well, my kids are adults, so it's easy for them to understand venture capital, and several of them have worked for startups, and so it's kind of like, hey, they understand completely, and they all have ownership in some of my startups, and so,
No kidding.
oh yeah, yeah, so they're
They're
and
cheering them on then.
yeah, and two or three of them have been involved in doing various things from design and marketing, and so yeah, it's they get it, and they love it.
That's excellent. Very cool. Well, last question I wanted to make sure to add to you. When people think of how Eagle Venture Fund, and particularly your role when you're serving the entrepreneurs, what does that look like? Aside from investing in their company and giving them the funding they need, is it taking a board seat? Is it phone calls in key times? What does that look like?
Oh, how we help our founders? Yes, we have quarterly strategy sessions. We sit on the board. We take calls or text messages, throughout the week or the day or the weekend. It doesn't matter. We help in everything that they're doing. We want to be a thought partner to them. We want to be there for them. So whether we're on the board or not, if we've invested, we're committed to their success.
Awesome. Well, Wade, thanks so much for taking the time to be with me today. I appreciate the opportunity to learn from the work that you're doing and excited to see the success of Eagle.
Thank you, Vit.